Okay, welcome to season 3 of Conversations with Kate. Hi, my sign name is
That's nice. Why did they give that to you?
because it is Kate plus weird. It was way
Ah,
back.
yeah.
But
For people who don't know, in deaf culture, when we get signings, especially the hearing people, uh, sometimes they can mix it with humor, or sometimes it's just a part of your body. Maybe if you have curly hair, they'll say something like Christina, or something funny about you, or something unique about you. We'll try to blend, the finger spelling of the first letter of your name with the sign itself. So in your case, Kate, which is weird. So interesting, very interesting. Are you weird? Is
are
that
you?
an accurate statement?
Is it accurate? It depends on what you're looking at as the baseline. So
Of
to
course,
me,
right.
no, I'm perfectly normal. But to someone else, who knows? I don't know. But I was thinking it would be really fun if I could name myself, but of course that doesn't happen. This was given to me by a deaf person. But if I could name myself, I would like to join Kate plus awesome. But what is this? I don't know the sign for awesome.
So awesome, awesome. So 2K, Kate plus awesome.
Really awesome. And a little
Yeah.
bit of a unicorn. What does this mean? Does this mean something
This is
bad?
the unicorn,
Yeah,
but
that's
you
the
gotta
good.
be careful because this could mean German.
Oh,
Look at
okay.
the old German hat.
Yeah, oh, the hats.
So
Of course.
yeah,
The
so
spiky
yeah.
hats.
Sign
Okay.
language is by the inch, 1 inch up. It's a totally different meaning. So it's a fascinating language.
It is actually. Okay, so before we get too far into this, I want to introduce to whomever may be watching my new friend who I picked up on LinkedIn, Doug Lawson. He is a wonderful copywriter, but the thing that got me was I was watching my feed go by and he had a video and I had seen his posts that were all very compelling, that were all written, but there was a video. I'm like, oh my gosh, he has a video. This is great. And so I watched this video and I found out during the video that Doug is deaf. And it's not that that's like, news flash, Doug's deaf, and he can write. It was more like, wow, that's really cool that now I know that. And it was also really, I thought it was incredibly brave because it's the kind of thing where um, I think you talked about some people were having, like, wondering about your accent and things like that. And to me, I don't want to talk about me very much right now, but I wanted to tell you that I grew up for quite a while, not grew up, but I was in Rochester, New York for a long time. And I went to RIT, Rochester
Yes,
Institute of
yes, yes. My wife
Technology.
graduated from RIT, and they
Haha,
have a huge deaf community over there. Of
they
course, yes.
do. They have the National Technical Institute of the Deaf is there. And so there's a gigantic population of hearing impaired and deaf people. And I always felt, and I still feel, ashamed that I missed, and I do mean ashamed, because I had an opportunity to really become more educated in ways that would have mattered much more in my life than engineering, right?
Sure, right,
Because,
right.
I mean, it turns out that you might lose a job, but you could gain a language and then take part in another community that you don't have easy access to. So I feel sad that I missed out. But I'm glad.
So about RIT, there many many hearing people. It's not just you who saw deaf people hanging out, and for whatever reason didn't engage. And I think you know deafness is one of those disabilities that truly separates people from people. And I think Helen Keller said it best, blindness separates people from things, but deafness separates people from people. And she's quite right, because in my life experience, very few people want to get to know what it's really like to be that. So they kind of look at you, they can audit it, and so maybe that's not your experience. But for a lot of us, we're kind of seen as untouchable in a lot of ways, and there's a hierarchy in the disability caste system, if you will, and deafness is right there in the bottom, where people mistake somebody who can't hear as having an intellectual disability, right? Or they feel that we are not able to participate in society. Or I've had people question whether I could be a parent or ride a bicycle,
Oh my
things
God.
and it's like, okay, well, I don't hear. However, my brain function is just fine. So it's just one of those disabilities that society as a whole, not just American society, but world culture, views deaf people quite differently than they would view somebody who uses a wheelchair or might be blind. We It's a little different when it comes to us.
I think that's really interesting. I was always afraid to fuck up. Like I was
But that's
afraid that,
also the other case too. There's
yeah,
part of that, and there's part of, oh, well, I don't want to fuck up. Well, why would you be scared? I'm not criticizing. I'm just asking.
no, bring it.
Why would you be scared to fuck up? I mean, it's not like uh uh you lose anything in the process. There's no real fucking up, because we know you don't know sign language, so there's nothing to fuck up per se, if that makes sense.
It does. But I have to admit, I'm admitting that I interacted with people who were um, coming in and out of my cultural group because at that point I was dating women, and so that was its own subculture. And then there it was a
Yeah,
tight
no,
community,
yeah, for sure.
and so there were impaired people. We At that point we couldn't say deaf, we had to say hearing impaired. So that's another thing. That language has probably changed a lot. Like just say deaf, for goodness sakes. And there's also people who are hearing impaired. It's not the same thing. You can be hearing impaired and also you could be deaf. But is there like,
I It's cultural. So if I were to tell somebody that I'm hearing impaired to a deaf person, that means I'm not culturally deaf. I'm medically deaf. So I'm talking about a very medical term. If I tell somebody I'm deaf, to deaf people in deaf culture, that means you're culturally deaf at some level, whether you're super deafy or you accept that your deafness is not medical, it is simply a part of you. So that's why you might find some deaf people offended if you call them hearing impaired, uh, because it's very medical in its terminology. It
mhm.
signifies a lack, and for deaf people, being deaf is a source of pride. So
Well, it's
it's one of those
identity.
things.
Yeah, it's part of you, right? I mean,
It's just
that's
part of me.
you.
It's
Yeah.
very much something that's me. So if I say I'm deaf, hearing people say, wow, he calls himself deaf. Is he ashamed? No, I'm telling you, to call me that, it is perfectly acceptable to call me that. Calling me hearing impaired, it's being too nice. It's
Yeah.
almost, you're almost patronizing me, not you. I
No,
mean, in
I know
general,
what yep.
you're sort of patronizing me that I am, by trying to play politically correct. I have a whole beat with the whole political correctness from all angles, not just because it's 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 almost to me too much. But who's the too much for? We could talk for days about this, but anyway, that means that pride. Hearing impaired means you either are not aware or have not accepted that deafness is cool.
There's a deaf culture. I mean, there's also cultural meaning to deafness. Um,
Yes.
and it's not a problem to be fixed. It is a group of people who share an attribute. one of the things that I have loved as someone who is very kinetic is I love the beauty of the language. So when I tell you that I love the sound of Italian, I can tell you I love watching people sign because it's so expressive and faces. I mean, I love um, the kineticism. And unfortunately, I am just as in a foreign land listening to someone speak Italian as I am watching people sign. Because often when people are signing, they're fluent, and it's just going. It's shorthand, it's fast, it's little movements, quick, 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 and I can tell there's like mind connection, and I envy that because even with spoken English, my only language, I don't get that same level of connection with very many people. So
I
it's
feel like I feel like spoken language is, well, put it this way: when we sign to one another, we
Mhm.
have to give that other person our full attention. We
Oh,
can't look the other way.
yeah.
We can't look at our phones. We really have to be fully present with the person in front of us. So a lot of that is the mind to mind connection. Whereas I see hearing people talking to each other and they're looking out the window or they're looking at their phone or they're
Yeah.
chewing their teeth. They're very distracted when they talk to another human. So there isn't that mind to mind connection that you see. But I find it fascinating when hearing people are very passionate about a subject with another one. It's the same vibe. It's just that
Mhm.
deaf people have to be in that vibe quite often because the second I look the other way, I've lost the connection.
Mhm.
So it's very animated when we talk to one another.
I think that that idea of focus and unbroken attention, like a couple years ago, there was this guy on the internet who had this really, really funny video. I made my husband watch it. It was really funny. He said, so he was sitting in his car and he had his camera up and he just looked at that camera with love, like beaming love at the camera. It was like maybe a 5 minute video. I mean, it went on and on. It was uncomfortable because not, and we like my husband and I are not used to that level of focused attention. It was so bizarre, and it was so I mean, and it was so loving. I mean, it was coming from a loving place, but for me it was like, whoa, that's a lot of attention. Like I'm not used to that at all. Like holy shit, it was so bizarre. um, but at the same time, what a gift that you give each other when you give each other that kind of attention.
So I was watching a documentary a couple years ago. I forget her name. She's a famous performance artist.
Mhm.
It had like a Russian name to it. Anyway, she was
Oh
at the
yeah.
moment, I think you saw it, where she sits on a chair
Yep.
and you come in and you stand in front of her, you don't talk, you just look at her. And some people laugh, some people cry. I think it kind of plays into what you're saying.
Yes, she had this
And I think
incredible red dress.
that's,
I remember.
I forget
Yes.
her name. Do you know her name?
Not off the top of my
Maria
head.
something.
Yes, and it begins with an A, like Abramova or something like that.
So that is what I think hearing people are saying is that mind to mind connection.
Mhm.
And it does look passionate. Yes, the hands are flying, but it's total focus to the whole body structure to get the whole language because sign language is not just in the hand. Sign language is the whole face and eyes and the whole use of your shoulder and your hand. So people think it's just the hand. That couldn't be further from the truth. It's the whole body language to get you to understand what I'm saying and for me to understand what you're saying without the use of sound.
Because it's also so nuanced,
That's
you
very
know?
nuanced. Very
Um,
nuanced. It's
so,
hard for me to teach because I teach sign language for fun. I kind of stopped because I got really busy. But it's hard to teach hearing people nuance because they're so used to just hearing it. Like you can just hear it. And language just pops in your head. For us, it's everything in the view of our field. And the slightest subtle shift means something to us. So it's hard to teach that. And I don't know.
well, I got this app Because what do you do when you don't know what the hell you're doing? You get an app.
Okay. What's
So
the app?
it's called it's called the ASL app.
Ah, I've never heard of that.
It's actually the signs are signed by deaf people.
That helps.
Yeah. And if you get the paid version, which I did, you get this gorgeous man.
By the way, that guy you just saw, I used to teach him.
No.
That's Niall. He went to the military school for the deaf. I used to be his teacher. Yeah, that's Niall. And he has two brothers. He has a twin brother, actually. And all three of them went to the military school for the deaf. My wife used to be their babysitter when they were small in New York. That's how small the deaf culture is. So that's Niall. Yes, yeah, small world.
So I've seen him as an actor
Yes.
and
As an actor, as a model.
model,
Yeah.
and he's so beautiful that if he would like to teach me sign, that's okay. I
Any
may
day
not.
of the week.
I am not going to be a quick learner. I'm going to have to watch that a lot. It's going to be
Yeah.
it's going to be such hard work. Anyway, I think he's beautiful. But what I liked about this app, that was just a surprise once I got the app. But the reason I got this one was so that I could tell you what my sign name was with my intro of my bad signing under where you can see me. Thank you, Kate. That was helpful. And then, but I also just realized that I have two languages that I would like to learn besides my language, and that is I would like to learn Spanish and I would like to learn sign language because, first of all, like, where do we're living in a world where those two things would broaden my ability to communicate by so much and also broaden my ability to connect so much. It's really something. So, anyway, I so because you are such a writer, can I jump to writing questions?
Of course.
Okay.
You
So
can jump wherever you want to go.
I'm just so happy you're here. I can't even stand it. All right. So and I was going to tell you that usually we do about 30 minutes. So if you start to burn out, tell me whatever. But I I really love your writing. I think you're hysterically funny. You are very concise, but you leave enough extra in so it's human. You haven't whittled it down to the point where it doesn't have a voice anymore. And I wondered if you have ever written, like fiction or poetry and things like that. Is that part of your writing repertoire? Is that part of your past or current or future life?
So let's go back to my 20s. I graduated from the University of Denver with the degree I didn't want because I went into the University of Denver wanting to be a doctor. And so I went through all the sciences and wow, I got my butt kicked with the science. The higher we went into like chemistry and physics and
Oh,
things like
chemistry.
that. And also with the calculus, it was just I found myself studying for things for hours just to solve one problem. It was just a nightmare for me. Then I was 2 or 3 years in to my degree, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I need to switch and finish my degree within 4 years. So I said, what's the easiest degree you have? And they're like, business. So I'm like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I want a business degree. So I finished that degree with my eyes closed. And so problem solved, but I left college, because when you had a business degree, the only thing you could really do is entry level, data entry or telemarketing, things like that. And it's like, no, so what do I like to do? I like to write. I like to write stories. So I went back to school to an art school in Chicago for creative writing. So for
Awesome.
2 years, I worked on being a creative writer. So I wrote lots of short stories, lots of scripts, lots of stuff. And then again, I graduated with that degree. And it was like, okay, so what do we do with it?
Yeah.
Nothing. So I didn't have a portfolio to submit to all these writing jobs that people wanted, because at that time, the internet wasn't in full swing like it is now. You really had to send your work to a publisher, even for short story, to be in a collection of short stories. And if you got accepted, now we're going to your portfolio. And I never got accepted. I've submitted hundreds of short stories and never got accepted. So I never had a portfolio per se to give to the writing gigs. So to answer your question, I am very much trained to be a fiction writer. However, that's not my copywriting. So what you read on LinkedIn is not how I would write a fiction story. They're
Oh,
two
I'm sure
different
not.
things in
Oh,
my
yes.
mind.
Me
So
too.
I do have a writing background, and it kind of comes from that. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I just wondered also if you liked it. Like if you like writing fiction.
I did. I do. However, for me, it was just a very time-consuming process. Not like you can write a book. I mean, unless your name is Stephen King, you can. It's really difficult to write a book. Any book. It's very time-consuming, very lonely. It's it's one of the most self-torturous jobs you can ever do to yourself, because you're so hypercritical of every sentence you write, right? And you're putting your identity to a piece of literature, right? And if
Yep.
it's not good enough,
Yep.
therefore you're not good enough. So it's just torturous process that I think the artist takes. And I don't think Stephen King views himself as an artist. He views himself purely as a storyteller. So he's a teller of stories. Well, when I was writing, I was trying to be like Henry Miller,
Oh
or
yeah.
something more than writing.
Mm.
So that was. So if you ever wanted to make money that way, that was not the way that was going to happen. So even
No.
Henry Miller, in his book, you read it closely, he was broke. He was living in Paris and floating around from coast to coast. And he had rights. He was poor. But anyway, I liked it and I didn't like it.
When you write now, do you feel connected to your work? Like when you do your copywriting, or does it just come so easily to you at this point that you just need to have enough stuff that comes into the funnel so that you know what to have come out the other side, as it were? That was a horrible analogy.
No, 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 no. I think it works. So copywriting is interesting. Copywriting is very similar to writing in a dialogue. If I was writing a fiction story, the way you write dialogue is the way you write copy. Because copy is communicating with your audience, and it's very not formal. It's very not about detail. It's about communicating in a language that your audience understands, to
Yep.
be as clear and precise as possible. That's dialogue. In fiction writing, stories are very complex because of the nature of what kind of metaphors you're using, what kind of words you're using, you play on words, what is dialogue. You can understand mood, tone, whatever, simply reading the dialogue. That is where, for me as a copywriter, I'm just having a dialogue with my client audience, or in my case, with my LinkedIn audience. So that's why it comes up in your words very concise. It's because that's how we talk.
Mhm.
We talk in very non grammatically correct terms. We have, if we want our audience to understand something, this is how we talk. We talk, short, short bursts of energy. Whereas if you're a fiction writer, you just, and you just hope somebody gets it.
Someone makes it to the end of one of Faulkner's sentences. 20
Oh,
pages
who's the other
later.
guy who wrote a whole stream of consciousness about a dream he had? Joyce, James Joyce, reading Joyce, yeah, that's not copywriting at all.
It's like the opposite.
So I started to work on LinkedIn maybe 2 years ago, but
Okay.
I've been in social media for a very long time. I started in Twitter,
Mhm.
6 or 7 years ago, getting
Yeah.
clients over there before became, a viper pet. I sound like I'm angry. I'm not. It's just that certain segments of social media now is not healthy for humanity in any way.
Mm.
That's it might be. Twitter is chief among them for perpetuating, you know, uh, unnecessary bullying of different people. We could get into that later. So I got on Twitter 2 years. I mean, I got on LinkedIn 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and when I got on there, I was coming into it in the mindset of, well, this is where people post their resume. Let me just see how I can be a little witty. And it turns out, no, LinkedIn is where you go to have a chat with people. And through chatting and supporting, connecting, you grow bit by
Mhm.
bit. And then, so yeah, 2 years ago, what you're seeing me now versus where I was 2 years ago, two totally different things happening there.
Well, I love how you show up there. I mean, I really do. I love your
Well,
content.
I'm very curious. I never really asked anyone at all this question. I don't. It's probably because of my upbringing. I was taught to be, you know, for the lack of a better word, humble. So if you are playing sport and you score a touchdown, you don't do these dance moves. You you
Yeah.
just put the ball down, you walk back to the huddle, and you start the next play. That's very much how I was raised. It's a mix of Midwestern stoicism blended with Protestant upbringing. It's very okay. We don't draw attention to ourselves.
Mhm.
If you did something great, fantastic, do it again. So I've never. I want to use this with you. What about me do you like from my online presence? Because I don't really spend that much time, believe it or not, thinking about how I appear to other people. I am really just myself on LinkedIn.
You know what that means? That means I actually like yourself. Yeah. So, the thing I
Oh,
like, yeah,
some days I don't. Some days I
okay, that's
don't.
fair. We don't have to like ourselves or each other all the time. It's okay. No, but one of the things that I liked right away is that you used real language, that um, you didn't try and sort of use all the buzzwords. So when I first was reading your stuff, I noticed a complete lack of buzzwords. You don't talk about leaning in, and you don't talk about enablement, and you don't talk about, oh God, there was another one the other day that I thought my head was going to explode. When people talk about overwhelm,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
not being
Something comes.
overwhelmed, but just overwhelm, it's like, oh my God. It's like my head's going to explode. Overwhelmed. It has the ed is really important. I feel overwhelmed. So for me, your complete lack of buzzwords, complete lack of them, and all the writing that you've put out, that's yours. I mean, I haven't seen any samples that you've put out for other people. Do you have you ever done that? Have you ever shared samples that you've done for other people?
No, most clients don't want their work out there. Uh,
Fair enough.
Fortunately for me,
Yeah.
Simon Chan on May 17th is going to let me put up some of the work I've done for him and talk about how we got in $40,000 in revenue with a 2 week promo on a $40 product. But it's very rare that clients would say, "Hey, Doc, show my work out there." That just doesn't happen often.
Well, that's too bad because I know that I could learn a lot from you, Sensei. First of all, secondly, so your lack of buzzwords, your complete lack of bullshit. I mean, you sort of speak it as it is, and I really loved that. It wasn't sugar coated. It wasn't condescending either. You know, it wasn't like you people are doing it wrong. It was more like it was very accessible and without any extra fluff, and often with some amount of humor and a free use of bad language when appropriate. And I just felt like that was such a it's like I wanted to know the person who wrote this, which is why we're here. I mean, that's what's so funny is like it's like I want to know where this came from. I mean, this because it's not easy to write in a way that looks easy, for at least a lot of people. And so I loved that. And then when you did your video, I just wanted to be like, there were so many people, like there was, and it's still happening actually. There's this little moment happening on LinkedIn where a lot of people are telling their backstories. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's a little unnerving because I was right on the cusp of starting to share some of my backstories as part of my getting to know Kate. And I'm like, oh, come on, people, back up. I was just going to try. Now it's going to look like it's just one more person talking about a backstory. But the way that you did yours, again, it was like you were just talking to me. I didn't feel like you were talking to the world. I felt like you were talking to me. Like, and there's something about the writing that comes across that way too. I don't feel like you're writing for this giant audience. I feel like you're writing for one person. Um, and and I just happen to be a great match for that. It's like, oh yeah, you're writing to me. so um, so that's
It's
how you come
copywriting,
across.
by the way. That's what I said. Copywriting is a dialogue with somebody else. And I think people who think they're good copywriters are actually not, because if the writing feels like they're talking to a wider audience, that's not copywriting. That's just writing. And if you are able to get business from general writing, that's pure luck.
Mm-hmm.
But copywriting is about you and me. There's only two people here. Even though I'm talking to thousands of people, I have one person in my head when I'm writing, and that's the person in front of me. So some days when I write a post, I'm talking to a particular person. Today's post, I was talking about, people who want to talk about so many things because they think their lives are so interesting. Really, you can't do that. You need to talk about, in my opinion, the one thing that you should be known for. And I had a person in mind because I got into an argument with a client about this very subject. So I was writing to that person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why a lot of the writing comes off that way. That's what fiction writing comes out. You have to imagine the dialogue with a real or fictional character in your mind. So, and the sign language video, by the way, I was actually talking to somebody specifically. So that's just the mind hack. When I write, or in my case, sign, I have an audience in front of me. It's an audience of one. So maybe that's why a lot of people connect with my writing, because it feels like I'm talking to you, and I
Mm-hmm.
am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm I'm happy somebody wants to talk to me. So
Are you kidding
thank
me?
you.
You are fabulous, and I'm so glad I had this excuse and that you like kicked off season 3 with me. So now I have to continue. I can't just do one, so that means I have to do others. This is really good because it was a long time of really bad years here that I didn't feel very creative because I didn't know if we were going to get bombed in the night. So this is really nice to be able to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Uh, we'll keep in touch.
I hope. I hope we'll do
Of
this
course, we'll
again
keep in touch.
because because you really matter to me. Your presence matters to me. And
Thank
I'm
you.
so grateful that I stumbled upon you and that we were able to connect in this way. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the caption.
Oh,
Not
you're
very
welcome.
many people would do that. So I'm very humbled that you did that.
Oh, I'd say you're welcome, but it feels like the obvious thing that one would do if one wants to make the other person feel welcome.
Yeah,
God.
yeah. It's
Okay.
just, but I have to thank you because it's an exception, not the rule.
Okay. Learn from this, people. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye.